I gave her everything, my home, my pension, even my last name. Now I'm sleeping on a friend's couch in Bangkok because I have nowhere else to go. She said she loved me, said I saved her life. But maybe I was just a ticket out. People back home think I'm on vacation. Truth is, I can't afford to fly back. This is my confession. The whole ugly truth about how a 65-year-old marine mechanic from Newark ended up broken and broke in Southeast Asia. Because maybe someone out there needs to hear this before they make the same mistakes I did. Maybe someone can still turn back. A few days ago, I opened my inbox and saw a message from someone who's been watching this channel for over a year. He wrote, "Your stories hit close. I thought I had it bad until I realized there are guys out there who've lived through the same wreck I did." Reading that, I just stared at the screen. I felt this mix of sadness and strange comfort because I knew exactly what he meant. I remember the moment it all fell apart for me too. And it's hard to explain to anyone who hasn't lived it the way love can make you feel alive one minute and then completely unrecognizable the next. That email made me realize something. These stories aren't just stories anymore. They're mirrors. And sometimes hearing someone else say the words you've been choking on is how healing begins. If you're watching this right now, whether it's your first time here or you've been quietly listening from the shadows, I just want to say thank you. Please hit that like button, leave a comment, and let me know where you're tuning in from. I read them all. And to those of you who keep coming back, honestly, super thank you. You've helped build something real here. I never imagined I'd be sharing this part of my life. But maybe that's the only way to move forward, by telling the truth even when it hurts. Let me take you back to where it all started. Close your eyes, I told her, my hands trembling as I pulled the little velvet box from my jacket pocket. The Bangkok skyline stretched out below us, a sea of golden lights against the warm November night. We were on the rooftop of the Labua, champagne glasses half empty beside us, and Palin looked so beautiful in that black dress I'd bought her in Siam Paragon. 28 years old and perfect in every way that mattered to me. "Milton, what are you doing?" she whispered, but she was smiling, that shy smile that had hooked me from day one. Her accent made my name sound like music. "Just trust me," I said, dropping to one knee on that expensive rooftop. My knees cracked like they always did, but I didn't care. Nothing hurt when I was with her. "Palin Siraporn, will you marry me?" I opened the box, and the $4,000 diamond caught the city lights like a star. Her hands flew to her mouth, and she started crying those beautiful tears that women cry when their whole world changes. "Oh my God, Milton, oh my God, yes, 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 yes." She threw herself into my arms, and I felt like I could lift the whole damn city. This was it. This was what I'd been searching for my entire life. Not the cold marriage I'd escaped in Jersey. Not the empty apartment where I'd lived alone for 3 years after Helen took half of everything. This was real love with a woman who saw past my gray hair and my worn hands and my social security checks. "I love you so much," she whispered against my neck as I slipped the ring onto her finger. "You saved my life, you know that? You are my everything. And you're mine, sweetheart. You're everything I never thought I'd have." We clinked our champagne glasses, and the bubbles tasted like freedom, like a future I could actually want. I'd already signed the lease on the condo near Sukhumvit, both our names on the paperwork. She'd helped me pick out the furniture, spent hours arranging the kitchen exactly how she wanted it. Our home, our life, our everything. "When do you want to do it?" I asked, stroking her long black hair. "The wedding, I mean." "Soon," she said, her eyes sparkling. "I want to be Mrs. Milton Foster as soon as possible. I want everyone to know I belong to you." God, the way she said it. Like she was claiming me, not the other way around, like I was the prize. At 65, after 40 years of fixing boat engines and coming home to microwave dinners, I finally felt chosen. She made me feel young again. Not rich, not handsome, just enough. "We'll do it right," I promised her. "Big ceremony if you want. Invite your family from Eisen. Hell, we'll fly them all to Bangkok if that's what makes you happy. They will love you. she said, but something flickered across her face for just a second. My mother, she worries about me working in the city. But when she meets you, when she sees how good you are to me, she will understand why I chose you. I didn't question why her mother hadn't visited in the year we'd been together. Didn't ask why I'd never spoken to her family on video calls. Love doesn't ask those kinds of questions. Love trusts. Love believes in the magic of the moment. I'm going to take such good care of you, I whispered. You'll never have to worry about anything again. She pulled back and looked at me with those dark eyes that had first stopped me in my tracks at the Vertigo Lounge 13 months ago. I know you will, my love. You are the most gentle man I have ever known. So calm, so peaceful. You are my rock, Milton, my safe place. Those words, Jesus, those words hit me right in the chest where I'd been hollow for so long. She saw me. Not the grease under my fingernails or the way I read the menu twice because I needed reading glasses. She saw the man I'd always wanted to be. Let's go home, I said, standing up and offering her my arm. To our home. Our home, she repeated, and the way she said it made me believe in happy endings again. We walked to the elevator together, her diamond catching the light with every step, and I thought about all the nights I'd sat alone in that studio apartment in Newark, wondering if this was all there was, wondering if I'd die as lonely as I'd lived. But now, I had Palin. Now I had love. Now I had a reason to wake up every morning in this crazy, beautiful city that had given me everything I'd ever wanted. As we descended toward the street, toward our condo, toward our future, I squeezed her hand tight and made a silent promise. I would never let her down. I would never let this slip away. This was my second chance, and I was going to do it right this time. The ring was perfect on her finger. We were perfect together, and tomorrow I'd start planning the rest of our lives. Another singer? She'd asked that first night, her voice cutting through the jazz music and conversations around us. The Vertigo Lounge wasn't like those places on Soy Cowboy that made my skin crawl. This was classy, quiet, the kind of place where a man could sit alone with his thoughts and not feel like a creep. Sure, sweetheart, I'd said, not really looking at her. I was still raw from the divorce papers Helen had served me 6 months earlier. Still adjusting to the idea that 42 years of marriage could end with signatures on legal documents and half my pension gone. Bangkok was supposed to be a reset. 3 months to clear my head, maybe figure out what the hell came next. But then Palin set down that beer and actually looked at me, not the way bar girls looked at tourists, calculating and hungry, just looked at me like I was worth seeing. You seem sad tonight, she said, and I was surprised by how good her English was. Most of the service girls I'd encountered spoke broken phrases, just enough to get by. But Palin spoke like she'd been educated somewhere. Long day, I lied. The truth was, it had been a long 3 years since I'd felt like anything but a ghost of myself. You live here in Bangkok? She asked, wiping down the bar, even though it was already clean. It was past midnight, and the crowd was thinning out. Just visiting, from New Jersey. New Jersey. She smiled, and it was genuine. I've never been to America. Is it very different from here? Yeah, sweetheart, very different. That's how it started. Not with fireworks or instant attraction, but with a woman who seemed genuinely curious about me. About my life, my work, my stories from the marina, where I'd spent most of my adult life fixing engines and listening to other people's problems. I used to work in a hotel, she told me during our third conversation. But I like this job better. I meet interesting people, like you. I laughed, surprising myself. I'm not that interesting. Just an old mechanic who knows his way around a boat engine. But you have stories, she said, leaning against the bar. You have lived. I can see it in your eyes. She was different from the other girls working there. Older, for one thing. 27 to their 19 or 20. More settled. She wore simple clothes, no heavy makeup, and when she laughed, it came from somewhere real. She didn't ask me to buy her drinks or take her shopping. She just talked to me. Why did you come to Thailand? She asked during our fourth night together. Honestly, I needed to disappear for a while. My ex-wife, well, let's just say I needed some space to figure out who I am when I'm not married to someone who stopped loving me 20 years ago. Palin nodded like she understood. Sometimes we have to lose ourselves to find ourselves, yes? Yeah, something like that. I know this feeling, she said quietly. I came to Bangkok from Eisen 5 years ago. Very different life there. Very difficult. I didn't push for details. We all had our reasons for starting over, and I respected that she kept some things private. But as the weeks passed, she opened up. Told me about growing up poor, about working in rice fields, about a boyfriend who'd promised her everything and left her with nothing. I learned not to trust so easily, she said one night as we walked along the Chao Phraya. We'd started meeting outside the bar, just walking and talking like normal people, like friends. That makes two of us, I said. But the thing about Palin was that she made trust feel possible again. She was patient with my stories about Helen, never judging, never rushing me toward anything. When I told her about coming home to an empty house for the first time, about eating dinner alone while the TV played to keep me company, she just listened. You deserve better than that, she said simply. You deserve someone who sees how good you are. I'd never thought of myself as good. Competent, maybe, reliable, but good? That was new. You want to go up to Chiang Mai next weekend? I asked one Thursday night. We'd been seeing each other for 2 months, and I was tired of hotel rooms and tourist restaurants. I found this little place up there, very quiet, very peaceful. You want me to travel with you? She asked, and for a second she looked almost surprised. Only if you want to. No pressure. She was quiet for a long moment, then smiled. Yes, I would like that very much. Those 3 days in Chiang Mai were the first time I'd felt genuinely happy in years. We visited temples and ate street food and didn't talk about the past at all. Palin was different away from Bangkok. More relaxed, more herself maybe. She wore simple clothes and pulled her hair back and looked like a college student on vacation. This is nice, she said on our last morning there, sitting cross-legged on the hotel bed while I made coffee with the little machine they'd provided. Peaceful, like you. Like me? You have this calm energy, she said. It makes me feel safe, like I can stop watching over my shoulder all the time. I set down her coffee and sat beside her. What are you watching for? Everything, she said, and there was something in her voice that made me want to protect her from whatever had taught her to be so careful. But not with you. With you, I can just be. That's when I knew I was falling for her. Not because she was beautiful, though she was. Not because she was young, though that didn't hurt. But because she made me feel like the man I'd always wanted to be. The man who could make someone feel safe just by existing. I should probably head back to New Jersey soon, I said, testing the waters. My visa's almost up. She looked down at her coffee cup. When? Next month, maybe. Unless what? Unless I had a reason to stay. She looked up at me then, and I saw something I'd never seen in Helen's eyes, not even in the beginning. Hope. Real, honest hope. You could extend your visa, she said quietly, if you wanted to. Is that what you want? Yes, she said without hesitation. Yes, I want you to stay. I want to see where this goes, Milton, if that's okay with you. I kissed her then, soft and gentle, and she kissed me back like she meant it, like she wanted to be there, like I was worth staying for. That night, she stopped going home to her apartment. The next week, I extended my visa for another 6 months. A month after that, we started looking at condos together. She had opinions about everything. The kitchen layout, the view, the neighborhood. She cared about making it ours, not just mine. I want to build something real with you, she told me as we stood in what would become our living room, something that lasts. I believed her. God help me, I believed every word. Who was that? I asked, trying to keep my voice casual as Palin ended yet another phone call in rapid Thai. She'd been taking more of them lately, always stepping onto the balcony or into the bathroom for privacy. My cousin, she said, slipping her phone into her purse. She has some problems with her boyfriend, always calling for advice. It was the same answer she'd given me the last 5 times I'd asked. Always the cousin, always boyfriend problems. But something about the way she wouldn't meet my eyes when she said it made my gut twist. Maybe I could meet her sometime, I suggested. If she's having such a hard time, maybe we could help her out. She's very shy, Palin said quickly. Not comfortable around foreigners, you understand. I nodded because I wanted to understand. Because I'd spent enough time in Thailand to know that family obligations ran deep, that there were cultural things I'd never fully grasped. But late at night, when she thought I was sleeping, I sometimes heard her typing messages in the dark. Long messages. Too long for someone just giving relationship advice. "Where are you going?" I asked one morning as she grabbed her keys. "Shopping with Nim," she said, mentioning her friend from the old bar. "Girl stuff. Very boring for you." But when she came back 6 hours later, she had no shopping bags. No new clothes or makeup or whatever else women bought when they spent a day together. Just a tired smile and a kiss on my cheek. "How was shopping?" I asked. "Fine," she said. "I'm going to take a shower." Fine. Everything was always fine when I asked questions. The phone calls were fine. The disappearing acts were fine. The fact that I'd never actually met any of her friends or family was fine. But fine wasn't an answer. Fine was a wall. "Maybe we should think about visiting your mother soon," I said one evening as we ate dinner. "I'd like to meet her before we get married." Palin's chopsticks froze halfway to her mouth. "Oh, it's not a good time right now." "When would be a good time?" "Soon," she said, but she was looking at her pad that like it held the secrets of the universe. "Maybe next month, or after the wedding." Yes, after the wedding would be better. "Why after?" "Because." She set down her chopsticks and reached across the table to take my hand. "Because I want her to meet you as my husband. It will mean more that way, more official." It sounded reasonable. But the way she said it, like she was working out the logic as she spoke, made me wonder if she was convincing herself as much as me. "Palin," I started, then stopped. "How do you ask the woman you love if she's lying to you without sounding like every paranoid asshole who's ever dated a Thai woman?" "What is it, my love?" "Nothing. Just, you'd tell me if something was wrong, right? If you needed help with something?" Her face softened, and she squeezed my hand. "Of course I would." "You worry too much, Milton. Everything is good. We are good." But everything wasn't good. I just didn't want to admit it. The breaking point came on a Thursday night when I came home early from getting drinks with Jim, another American expat who'd been warning me about Thai girlfriend syndrome for months. I'd been defending Palin, insisting she was different, but his words were starting to eat at me. "Just keep your eyes open," he'd said. "Love makes us stupid, brother. Especially love with a big age gap and a big money gap." I told him to go to hell. But as I walked into our condo and saw Palin quickly closing her laptop, his voice echoed in my head. "You're home early," she said too brightly. "Missed you," I said, walking over to kiss her. But she angled her face so I caught her cheek instead of her lips. "I was just chatting with my sister," she said, gesturing at the laptop. "Family stuff." "I didn't know you had a sister." She blinked. Once, twice. Did I say sister? I meant cousin, the same cousin. You know, with the boyfriend problems. My heart started beating faster. "The shy one who doesn't like foreigners?" "Yes, that one." "The one you were shopping with yesterday?" "No, that was Nim. This is a different cousin." The lies were piling up, and we both knew it. But I wasn't ready to tear down everything we'd built on the foundation of my suspicions. Not yet. "Maybe I should learn some Thai," I said, testing the waters, "so I can talk to your family when I meet them." "That's sweet," she said, but her smile looked painted on. "But my family, they understand English better than they speak it. And your Thai pronunciation. She laughed, but it sounded hollow. Maybe stick with English. That night, she made love to me with a desperation that felt like an apology, or a goodbye. I tried to lose myself in her body, in the way she whispered my name, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she was performing for me, going through the motions of being the girlfriend I wanted her to be. "I love you," she said afterward, her head on my chest. "I love you too," I replied, but the words felt heavier than they used to, like they were carrying more weight than just affection. "Promise me you'll always trust me," she said into the darkness. "Promise me you'll always tell me the truth," I said back. She was quiet for so long I thought she'd fallen asleep. Then, so softly, I almost missed it. "I promise." But promises are just words, and words are easy to break. Easier than hearts, anyway. Though I was starting to learn that both could shatter with the right amount of pressure. I lay awake long after her breathing evened out, staring at the ceiling and trying to convince myself that love was enough. That whatever secrets she was keeping, whatever calls she was taking, whatever shopping trips produced no purchases, none of it mattered as long as we had each other. But doubt is like water. It finds every crack, every weak spot, every place where your faith isn't quite strong enough to hold back the flood, and I was starting to feel like I was drowning. $50,000, I said, staring at the bank transfer receipt. "You need $50,000 to open a coffee shop?" Palin nodded, her eyes bright with excitement. We were sitting in a cafe near Lumpini Park, planning what she called our future together. She'd spread out business plans and lease agreements and photos of a small storefront in Thonglor. "It's perfect, Milton. Small, but in a good location. Lots of foot traffic. And my cousin, she knows about business. She can help us run it." The mysterious cousin again. The one I'd never met despite 3 months of hearing about her daily. "Why does it have to be in your cousin's name?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Because she has Thai citizenship. Makes everything easier for permits and licenses. But it will be our shop. You and me. A real partnership." She reached across the table and took my hands, and I felt that familiar pull. The way she looked at me like I was her hero, her savior, her everything. It was addictive, that feeling of being needed. "I've been thinking," she continued, "maybe after we get married, I won't need to work at the bar anymore. I can focus on the shop, and you can. What do you want to do, my love? Besides take care of me?" I laughed, but it came out shakier than I intended. "I don't know. I never really thought about retirement like this, with someone else in the picture." "Well, now you have someone else. You have me. And I want to build something with you. Something that's ours." The way she said it made me believe it was possible. That we could have a normal life together, running a little business and growing old in Bangkok. It was a prettier picture than the one I'd been painting for myself back in Newark, alone in a one-bedroom apartment, collecting Social Security and waiting to die. "Okay," I said, pulling out my phone to open the banking app. "Let's do it." Her face lit up like Christmas morning. "Really? You mean it?" "I mean it. But I want to be involved, okay? I want to help with the planning and the setup. I want this to be something we do together." "Of course," she said, bouncing in her seat. "We will do everything together. You are my partner in all things now." The transfer took 5 minutes. $50,000 from my retirement account to a Thai bank account in a name I couldn't pronounce. Palin watched the screen over my shoulder, and when the confirmation appeared, she threw her arms around my neck and kissed me so hard I forgot to breathe. "Thank you, thank you, thank you," she whispered. "You just gave us our future, Milton, our real future." For 2 weeks, she was the happiest I'd ever seen her. She woke up early to go to the shop location, measuring walls and talking to contractors. She came home with paint samples and menu ideas and stories about all the changes we were going to make. "The coffee machine arrives tomorrow," she told me one night, practically glowing with excitement. "And I found the perfect chairs, very comfortable, very stylish." "When do we open?" I asked. "Soon. Maybe 2 weeks. I want everything to be perfect for our first customers. But 2 weeks turned into 4, and 4 turned into 6. The shop was always almost ready, but never quite there. Palin's daily visits became every other day, then twice a week, then barely at all. "How's the shop coming?" I asked one morning when she was still in bed at noon. "Fine," she mumbled into her pillow. "Contractor problems. You know how it is." But I didn't know how it was, because every time I offered to go with her to see the progress for myself, she had a reason why it wasn't a good time. The contractors didn't speak English. The location was in a bad neighborhood. She wanted to surprise me with the finished product. "Maybe we should check on things together," I suggested. "I could help with the contractors. I know a thing or two about fixing things that are broken." She looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. Annoyance? Fear? Guilt? "I told you, I want it to be a surprise. Please, Milton, trust me on this." Trust. Always back to trust. Like it was something I could just choose to do, instead of something that had to be earned and maintained. 3 months after the transfer, I finally put my foot down. "I want to see the shop," I said over breakfast. "Today, right now. No more surprises, no more excuses. I want to see what we built with my money." The color drained from her face. "Our money?" she corrected quietly. "Fine, our money. So let's go see our shop." She stared at her coffee for a long time, and I could practically see the wheels turning in her head. Finally, she looked up at me with those dark eyes that had convinced me to fall in love with her. "It's not ready yet." "I don't care if it's ready. I want to see it. The contractor, there were problems. Water damage. We had to start over with some things. So show me the water damage." "Milton, please, I know you're frustrated, but—" "I'm not frustrated," I lied. "I'm concerned. $50,000 is a lot of money, Palin. I need to know it's being used for what we agreed on." Her face went cold, colder than I'd ever seen it. "You don't trust me." "I'm trying to trust you, but you're making it very hard." "I thought you were different," she said, standing up from the table. "I thought you weren't like other foreign men who come here and treat Thai women like criminals." "That's not what I'm doing." "Isn't it?" She grabbed her purse and headed for the door. "You give me money for our business, then you act like I'm stealing from you. Maybe you should date someone from your own country if you can't handle being with a Thai woman." She slammed the door behind her, and I sat there staring at my eggs getting cold. Part of me wanted to chase after her, to apologize and promise to trust her blindly forever. But a bigger part of me was tired of being made to feel guilty for asking reasonable questions about my own money. She didn't come home that night, or the next night. On the 3rd day, I got a text. "Staying with my aunt until you decide if you want a real relationship or just want to control me." I'd never heard of this aunt before, just like I'd never met the cousin or the sister who was actually a cousin or any of the family members she claimed to love so much. But instead of demanding answers, I found myself typing back, "I'm sorry, come home, we'll figure it out." Because that's what love does to you. It makes you apologize for wanting the truth. It makes you beg for scraps of affection from someone who's supposed to love you back. It makes you choose willful blindness over the possibility of losing the only good thing you thought you had. She came back the next day with red eyes and a story about her aunt being sick. She fell into my arms like she'd been gone for months instead of days, and I held her tight and promised I'd never doubt her again. But promises are just words, and some words are easier to break than others. The Mandarin Oriental sits on the river like a golden palace, all glowing windows and expensive cars pulling up to valet stands. I'd been sitting in a taxi across the street for 20 minutes, feeling like the worst kind of fool, the kind who follows his girlfriend because he can't shake the feeling that everything she tells him is a lie. "You sure you want to wait here?" the driver asked in broken English. "Maybe go home? Come back later?" "No," I said, my eyes fixed on the hotel entrance. "I'll wait." Palin had told me she was having dinner with her sick aunt, the same aunt I'd never met, who lived in a part of Bangkok she could never quite explain how to get to. She'd kissed my cheek and promised to be home by 11, and something about the way she avoided my eyes made my stomach turn over. "I love you," she'd said at the door, like she was trying to convince herself as much as me. "Love you too, sweetheart." But love wasn't enough anymore. Love wasn't enough to explain the late nights and the mysterious phone calls and the coffee shop that existed only in her stories. Love wasn't enough to quiet the voice in my head that sounded suspiciously like my ex-wife. "You always were too trusting, Milton, too eager to believe what you wanted to hear." At 9:47 p.m., I saw her getting out of a black sedan. Not a taxi, not a tuk-tuk, a sedan with tinted windows and diplomatic plates. She was wearing the red dress I'd bought her for our 6-month anniversary, the one she said made her feel beautiful, the one she'd worn the night we first made love. But she wasn't alone. The man who got out behind her was maybe 35, tall and lean with the kind of European features that screamed money. He put his hand on the small of her back as they walked toward the hotel entrance, the same way I'd touched her 1,000 times, the same way a man touches a woman who belongs to him. I watched them disappear into the lobby, and something inside my chest cracked like old ice. "Take me home," I told the driver. "You sure? Maybe you want to." Take me home. But I couldn't go home. Not to the condo that smelled like her perfume and had her clothes scattered across our bedroom floor. Instead, I had the driver drop me at a bar down the street from the hotel. A dirty little place where I could drink Thai whiskey and try to forget what I'd seen. It didn't work. 3 hours and half a bottle later, I was back at the Mandarin Oriental, sitting in the lobby like a ghost haunting his own life. The night clerk kept glancing at me, probably wondering if he should call security on the drunk American who looked like he'd lost everything. At 2:15 a.m., the elevator doors opened. Palin stepped out first, adjusting her dress and running her fingers through her hair. The man followed a few steps behind, checking his phone like he had somewhere important to be. They didn't touch as they walked through the lobby, but there was an intimacy in the space between them, the kind of casual distance that comes from being comfortable with someone. She saw me when they were halfway to the door. Her steps faltered, and for a split second her face went completely blank. Not surprised, not guilty, just empty. The man noticed her hesitation and looked in my direction. He said something to her in what sounded like German, and she shook her head, touching his arm briefly. "Wait in the car," she told him in English. "I'll be right there." He looked at me with mild curiosity, the way you might look at a street dog that had wandered into an expensive restaurant. Then he shrugged and walked outside. Palin approached me slowly, her heels clicking on the marble floor like a countdown timer. "Milton," she said when she was close enough to touch, "what are you doing here?" "Waiting for you," I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. "How's your aunt?" She didn't even flinch. "She's fine, much better now." "Good. That's good." I stood up, swaying slightly. "Who's your friend?" "Just someone I know. A friend of my cousin's." "Another cousin." "Always another cousin." I almost laughed. "Funny place to meet a friend," I said. "The Mandarin Oriental at 2 a.m. "Milton, you're drunk. Let me take you home." "Are you fucking him?" The words came out uglier than I'd intended, loud enough that the night clerk looked up sharply. Palin glanced around the lobby, her cheeks flushing red. "Keep your voice down. You're embarrassing yourself." "I'm embarrassing myself?" I felt something hot and angry rising in my chest. "I'm not the one sneaking around hotel rooms with strange men." "It's not what you think." "Then tell me what it is." She was quiet for a long moment, and I could see her calculating, weighing her options, deciding how much truth she could afford to give me. "It's business," she said finally. "He's helping me with the shop, with permits, and things you wouldn't understand." "Business that requires a hotel room?" "He's married," she said, like that explained everything. "His wife can't know he's helping Thai people with business ventures. There are complications." It was such an elaborate lie that for a second I almost admired the creativity. Almost. "Stop," I said. Stop what? Stop lying to me, please. We both know what this is. She looked at me for a long time, and I saw something shift in her face. The mask slipping, the performance ending. You want the truth? She asked. I want the truth. The truth is you wouldn't understand. The truth is there are things I have to do that have nothing to do with you. The truth is that this world is more complicated than your little American brain can handle. Each word hit me like a physical blow. Not because she was angry, but because she was so calm, so matter-of-fact about destroying everything I thought we had. The shop, I said. What about it? The $50,000. Was any of it real? She shrugged. Some of it. Does it matter now? Does it matter? I could feel tears starting to burn behind my eyes. Palin, I love you. I gave you everything I had because I love you. I know, she said. And for the first time that night, she looked almost sad. And I'm sorry about that. I really am. Are you coming home? Not tonight. When? I don't know, Milton. I need to think. She turned to leave, then stopped and looked back at me one more time. For what it's worth, she said, I did care about you. I still do. But caring isn't enough sometimes. I watched her walk out of the lobby, watched her get into the black sedan with the man who wasn't her cousin or her friend or anyone I'd ever heard her mention before. I watched them drive away into the Bangkok night, taking the last pieces of my heart with them. The night clerk came over as I stood there swaying in the middle of his perfect lobby. Sir, do you need help getting home? Yeah, I said, my voice cracking. Yeah, I think I do. But home was the condo I'd shared with a woman who'd never really been mine. Home was a bed that would smell like her for weeks. Home was everything I'd built on a foundation of lies and wishful thinking. So I went back to that dirty bar and drank until the sun came up, trying to wash away the taste of truth. But some truths don't wash away. They just settle deeper into your bones until they become part of who you are. The key didn't work. I stood there in the hallway of what used to be our building, jiggling the metal in the lock like an idiot, my hangover pounding behind my eyes like a jackhammer. 3 days had passed since that night at the hotel. 3 days of sleeping in cheap hostels and drinking myself stupid and waiting for Palin to call and explain everything away. Sir, you cannot go up, the doorman said, appearing beside me with that polite Thai smile that meant absolutely nothing. New resident only. I live here, I said, though the words felt foreign in my mouth. Unit 1247, Milton Foster. He shook his head. Only Miss Siraporn and her cousin now, you not on list anymore. Her cousin. The phantom cousin who was suddenly real enough to live in my apartment and change my locks. I felt something cold and sharp twist in my stomach. There's been a mistake, I said, pulling out my phone. Let me call her. But when I dialed Palin's number, it went straight to a message in Thai. When I tried Line, it showed me as blocked. When I tried Facebook, her profile had disappeared entirely. It was like she'd erased me from existence with the push of a button. Please, I said to the doorman, hating how desperate I sounded. My things are up there. My passport, my clothes, everything. Sorry, sir. I call police if you no leave now. Police. Right. Because in Thailand, the foreign boyfriend doesn't get the benefit of the doubt. Not when he's arguing with a Thai woman's family about property and money and who belongs where. I took a taxi to the bank, my hands shaking as I logged into my account on my phone. The joint account we'd opened for household expenses was empty. Not just low, empty. $43,000 gone. The money I'd kept for emergencies, for our wedding, for the future we'd planned together. I need to speak to someone about unauthorized withdrawals, I told the teller, a young woman who looked at me with the kind of pity usually reserved for stray dogs. You have joint account, sir. Other person authorized to withdraw. No unauthorized transaction. But she took everything, all of it. Both names on account. Both people can take money. This is normal. Normal. There was that word again. Like $43,000 disappearing overnight was just another Tuesday in Bangkok. I spent the next 2 hours on the phone with my bank in the States, explaining why my retirement account had been cleaned out by someone I'd given power of attorney to. The customer service representative was very polite and very clear. Voluntary transfers couldn't be reversed, even if I'd been lied to, even if I'd been played for a fool. Sir, I show here that you signed documents giving Miss Siraporn full access to your accounts. These were notarized and witnessed. There's nothing we can do. She said it was for our business, for our future together. I understand this is difficult, but legally speaking, these were legitimate transactions. Legitimate. Like there was anything legitimate about what she'd done to me. That night, I called my son Danny in Philadelphia. It was the first time we'd spoken since I'd left for Bangkok, and hearing his voice made me want to crawl into a hole and disappear. Dad? Jesus, what time is it there? Danny, how are you, son? I'm fine. Are you okay? You sound weird. I'm great, I lied. Living the dream out here in paradise. Just wanted to check in. That's good. Mom said you were having some kind of midlife crisis, but I told her you were just finally having some fun for once. Mom, Helen, who was probably laughing her ass off right now if she knew what had happened to me. The stupid old fool who thought he could buy love with his pension money. Dad, you still there? Yeah, I'm here. Listen, I might stay out here a little longer than planned. This place, it's really growing on me. Cool. You deserve it. After all those years taking care of Mom, you earned some happiness. Happiness. If only he knew. I love you, Danny. Love you too, Dad. Hey, send me some pictures when you get a chance. I want to see this paradise you're living in. After I hung up, I sat in my $12 hostel room and stared at the ceiling fan turning lazy circles above my head. I could fly home. I had enough left on my credit cards for a ticket. I could show up on Danny's doorstep and tell him the truth about what his old man had done. About how I'd been so desperate for love that I'd handed over my entire life savings to a woman half my age who saw me coming from a mile away. But the shame of it was worse than the loneliness, worse than sleeping on a mattress that smelled like disinfectant and listening to backpackers fuck in the next room. At least here, I was just another broke expat with a sob story. Back home, I'd be the pathetic old fool who got conned by a Thai bar girl. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Your belongings are at front desk. Building management say you have 24 hours to collect or they throw away. No signature, no explanation. Just a notification that my entire life had been reduced to whatever fit in a few garbage bags. I took the train back to Sukhumvit and found 3 black trash bags waiting for me at the front desk. My clothes, my books, my toiletries, my prescription medications, everything that had made the condo feel like home, stuffed into plastic like evidence from a crime scene. Where's my passport? I asked the building manager. Only these bags, he said with a shrug, nothing else. I need my passport. It's a blue book, American passport. Ask Miss Siraporn. Maybe she keep for safe. But Miss Siraporn wasn't answering my calls or my texts or my increasingly desperate emails. Miss Siraporn had taken my money and my dignity and my identification and disappeared into the city like she'd never existed at all. I dragged those garbage bags back to the hostel and spread everything out on the narrow bed. 42 years of marriage, 3 years of divorce, and 1 year of believing in love again, all reduced to the contents of 3 trash bags. No passport, no legal documents, no proof that I'd ever been anything more than a tourist with too much money and too little sense. That night, I wrote her one last email. Palin, I don't understand what happened to us. I don't understand how we got from that rooftop to this. I'm not angry. I just need my passport back so I can figure out what comes next. Please, I'm not trying to cause you problems. I just want to go home. I sent it and waited and waited and waited. The response came 3 days later from an email address I didn't recognize. Milton, I told you the truth at the hotel. This world is more complicated than you understand. I did what I had to do. Your passport is at the American Embassy. I dropped it off yesterday. Don't try to contact me again. It's better this way for both of us. No explanation, no apology, no acknowledgement of the year we'd spent building what I thought was a life together. Just instructions on where to collect my identity so I could get out of her country and her life forever. I sat there staring at that email until the words blurred together, and I realized I was crying. Not from anger or betrayal, but from the simple, devastating understanding that I had never mattered to her at all. I had been a mark, a means to an end, a lonely old man with money to spend and stories to tell, and a heart that was still stupid enough to believe in fairy tales. The ring was gone, of course. The $4,000 diamond that was supposed to symbolize our forever probably sold before the locks were changed. Probably turned into cash the same day she emptied our bank accounts. But maybe that was fitting, because nothing about us had been forever. Nothing about us had even been real. I recorded the voice message at 3 a.m, sitting on the steps of a 7-Eleven near Nana Station with drunk tourists stumbling past me and the smell of street food making my empty stomach turn over. I'd been carrying my phone for 2 weeks, typing and deleting messages to Palin, trying to find the right words to make sense of what had happened to us. But there were no right words. There was only the truth, messy and pathetic and raw. I pressed record and started talking. Palin, it's me. I know you don't want to hear from me, and I know you said not to contact you, but I need to say this. Just once. Then I'll leave you alone forever, I promise. A group of British kids walked by, laughing about something, and I waited for them to pass before continuing. I got my passport from the embassy. Thank you for that. I know you didn't have to do it, so thank you. I'm not calling to yell at you or demand my money back or any of that. I just need to understand something. My voice cracked and I had to stop for a minute. A security guard from the 7-Eleven was watching me through the window, probably wondering if I was going to cause trouble. Was any of it real? I keep thinking about that night on the rooftop when I proposed, about how you cried when you said yes. Were those real tears, or were you just that good at acting? Because if you were acting, then you're the best actress I've ever seen. And if you weren't, if some part of you actually did love me, even for a little while, then I need to know that. I need to know I wasn't completely wrong about everything. A taxi driver honked his horn at someone and I realized I was crying again. Not the angry tears from the hotel lobby, but something deeper. Something that came from a place I didn't even know existed until Palin had found it and then destroyed it. I keep trying to be angry at you, but I can't. I know that makes me pathetic, but it's the truth. Maybe you did what you had to do. Maybe you had debts or family problems or something else I never understood. Maybe I was just too stupid to see the signs, or maybe I saw them and ignored them because I wanted so badly to believe that someone like you could love someone like me. I wiped my nose on my sleeve and tried to steady my breathing. I'm 65 years old, Palin. Do you know what that means? It means I don't get many chances left. I don't get to start over and find someone else and build a new life. This was it for me. You were it for me. And maybe that's not fair to put on you. Maybe that's too much pressure. But that's how it felt. Like you were my last shot at happiness. The security guard opened the door and said something to me in Thai. I shook my head and held up my phone, trying to indicate I'd be finished soon. I loved you more than I ever told you. I know I said it every day, but I never told you how completely you changed my life. How you made me feel young again. Not because you were young, but because you made me remember what it was like to have hope, to wake up excited about something, to plan for a future that looked better than my past. I had to stop again because the words were getting tangled up with sobs and I didn't want her to hear me falling apart. Even now, even after everything, I wanted her to remember me as strong. I hope you're okay, wherever you are. I hope you got whatever you needed from what we had together. And I hope someday, maybe years from now, when all of this doesn't hurt anymore, you'll think about me and remember something good. Remember that I loved you the best way I knew how, even if it wasn't enough. A police motorcycle pulled up to the curb, and the officer looked at me with the kind of expression cops everywhere save for people who are obviously broken. "I'm not angry," I said into the phone, racing to finish before I got moved along. "I'm just sad. Sad for both of us, really. Because what we had, even if it wasn't real for you, it was the most real thing that ever happened to me. And now it's over, and I don't know how to be the person I was before I met you. I don't even want to be that person anymore." The police officer was walking toward me now, his hand resting casually on his baton. "Take care of yourself, Palin. I mean that. Be happy. Be safe. And if you ever think about what might have been different if you just told me the truth from the beginning, well, maybe it's better that we'll never know." I ended the recording and sent it before I could change my mind. The police officer said something in Thai, and I stood up and walked away without looking back. I didn't want to see his face when he realized I was just another broken expat with nowhere else to go. The message was delivered at 3:17 a.m. I know because I checked obsessively for the next 3 days, waiting for some kind of response. A word of explanation, or an apology, or even just an acknowledgement that she'd listened to it. Nothing came. On the 4th day, I checked her Line profile one more time and saw that she'd changed her status to "in a relationship" with a photo of her and a Thai man about her age, both of them smiling at the camera like they'd never been happier. He was handsome in that clean-cut Bangkok way, with expensive clothes and perfect teeth and the kind of confident smile that came from never having to doubt whether someone loved you back. She looked exactly the same as she had with me. Same smile, same eyes, same way of tilting her head toward the camera, like she'd simply stepped from one life into another without missing a beat. I deleted her contact information that night. Deleted the photos from our trips to Chiang Mai and Phuket. Deleted the videos of her laughing at my stupid jokes and the screenshots of her sweet text messages and the voice recording she'd sent me once when she was drunk and missed me. I deleted everything except the memory of how it felt to love her, because that was the one thing I couldn't bring myself to throw away. Even knowing it had been built on lies, even knowing she'd probably never felt the same way about me, it had been real for me. It had made me feel alive in a way I'd forgotten was possible. And maybe that was enough. Maybe that had to be enough. The voice message showed as "read" the next morning, but she never replied. I told myself I didn't expect her to, but that was just another lie I was learning to live with. Like all the others, it got easier with practice. The room near On Nut Station cost me 4,000 baht a month, which was about all I could afford after buying a one-way ticket back to reality. It was barely bigger than a prison cell, with a narrow bed, a plastic chair, and a window that looked out onto an alley where stray dogs fought over garbage and the smell of sewage mixed with cooking oil in a way that made me nauseous every morning. My roommate was an Australian named Gary who'd been in Bangkok for 8 years and looked like it. Hollow cheeks, yellow teeth, and the kind of desperate friendliness that came from talking to yourself too much. He'd been married to a Thai woman too, he told me the first night. Lost everything the same way I had, except his story involved a motorcycle accident and hospital bills and a wife who disappeared when the insurance money ran out. The thing about Thai women, he said, cracking open his 3rd Chang beer before noon, is they're survivors. They do what they have to do. Can't blame them for that, really. But I wasn't interested in his theories about Thai women or Asian culture or the expat experience. I wasn't interested in joining his bitter little fraternity of men who'd been outsmarted by people they'd underestimated. I just wanted to figure out how to live with myself. I got a job washing dishes at an Irish pub in Sukhumvit, which was about as pathetic as it sounds. 10 hours a day, standing over hot water and grease, scraping the leftovers of people who could afford to eat out while I survived on 7-Eleven sandwiches and instant noodles. The Thai kitchen staff treated me with the kind of polite confusion usually reserved for exotic animals in zoos. A 65-year-old American washing dishes in Bangkok wasn't something they saw every day. "Why you here?" asked Noi, the head cook, during my 2nd week. She was maybe 40, with kind eyes and hands that moved like lightning as she chopped vegetables. "Long story," I said. "Thai girlfriend?" I nodded, surprised by how much it still hurt to admit. Ah, she said, like that explained everything. Same, many farang. Same, many farang. I was just another story in a city full of men who'd confused loneliness with love and paid the price for it. The worst part wasn't the work or the tiny room or the way other expats looked at me when they realized I wasn't a tourist anymore. The worst part was the mirror in the shared bathroom down the hall. Every morning, I'd splash water on my face and see the man I'd become reflected back at me. Gray stubble, bloodshot eyes, and something broken behind them that I didn't recognize. Who was this person? This wasn't the Milton Foster who'd built a decent life in Newark, who'd raised a good kid and fixed boat engines for 40 years and paid his taxes and minded his own business. This wasn't even the Milton Foster who'd fallen in love with a beautiful woman and believed in second chances. This was someone else entirely. Someone who'd traded his dignity for the illusion of being wanted. Someone who'd been so desperate to feel special that he'd ignored every warning sign and red flag until it was too late to save himself. "You hate her?" Gary asked one night as we sat in our miserable little room, sharing a bottle of Mekong whiskey that tasted like paint thinner. I thought about it for a long time. Did I hate Palin? Did I hate her for lying to me, for taking my money, for making me believe we had a future together? No, I said finally. I hate myself. That's your first mistake, Gary said, pouring himself another drink. You should hate her. Makes it easier. But hate required energy I didn't have. Hate required caring enough to be angry, and I was past anger. I was in that gray space beyond hurt, where everything just felt numb and pointless. I started walking at night, wandering through the neighborhoods where tourists and expats lived their carefully curated versions of the Thai experience. I'd see couples in restaurants, foreign men with Thai women, and wonder which ones were real and which ones were just elaborate performances. Which men were genuinely loved and which ones were just ATMs with heartbeats. Maybe it didn't matter. Maybe love was always transactional in some way, and I'd just been too naive to understand the terms of the deal. One night, I found myself back at the Vertigo Lounge where I'd met Palin. It was exactly the same as it had been 2 years ago. Soft jazz, expensive drinks, and beautiful women serving lonely men who were looking for something they couldn't name. I ordered a singa and sat at the same spot where Palin had first poured my drink. A different girl worked the bar now, younger and prettier, and wearing the same kind of smile that promised everything and meant nothing. You okay, sir? She asked, probably noticing that I looked like I'd been living rough. Just remembering, I said. Good memories or bad memories? Both. She nodded like she understood. And maybe she did. Maybe every bartender in Bangkok had seen my story played out 100 times before. The lonely foreign man, the beautiful local woman, the inevitable crash when reality intruded on the fantasy. I finished my beer and left a tip I couldn't afford because some habits die hard. As I walked to the elevator, I caught my reflection in the mirrored wall and stopped cold. For just a second, I saw myself the way Palin must have seen me that first night. Tired, desperate, and rich enough to be useful. A mark wearing his loneliness like a neon sign. She'd probably known exactly how the story would end before she'd even learned my name. Back in my room, Gary was already passed out on his bed, snoring loud enough to wake the dead. I lay on my narrow mattress and stared at the ceiling, thinking about choices and consequences and the price of wanting things you can't afford. I'd made my choices. I'd ignored the warning signs, dismissed the red flags, and chosen to believe what I wanted to believe instead of what was obviously true. I'd been so hungry for love that I'd mistaken manipulation for affection and transactions for intimacy. And now here I was, 65 years old and washing dishes in a Bangkok kitchen, sharing a room with another broken man and trying to figure out how to live with the person I'd become. Maybe this was what I deserved. Maybe this was where men like me always ended up when we confused our needs with someone else's wants. Maybe this room, this job, this life was exactly what happened when you tried to buy something that couldn't be sold. I closed my eyes and tried to sleep, but sleep was another luxury I couldn't afford anymore. Instead, I lay there listening to Gary snore and the sounds of the city outside my window, and I wondered if this was rock bottom or if there were still deeper places to fall. Either way, I was about to find out. The sunrise over Bangkok looks different when you've got nowhere else to be. I discovered this sitting on the narrow balcony of my shoebox room, wearing nothing but underwear and drinking instant coffee from a plastic cup that had seen better days. It was 6:30 a.m. on a Tuesday, and the city was just beginning to wake up around me. 6 months had passed since I'd been locked out of my old life. 6 months of washing dishes and sharing a room with Gary and learning to live on about $10 a day. 6 months of becoming invisible in a city where I'd once felt like someone important. The funny thing was, I wasn't miserable anymore. Not happy exactly, but not miserable either. I'd settled into something that felt like acceptance, though I wasn't sure what I was accepting exactly. Maybe just the truth about who I'd always been underneath all the pretending. "You're up early," Gary said, stumbling onto the balcony with his own cup of instant coffee. He looked like hell, which was pretty much his permanent state these days. "Couldn't sleep," I said, thinking about her again. I considered lying, but what was the point? Not really, just thinking. It was true. I didn't think about Palin much anymore, at least not in the obsessive way I had for the first few months. When I did think about her, it was more like remembering a movie I'd seen once that had seemed real at the time, but now felt obviously fictional. I wondered sometimes if she was happy with her new boyfriend, the clean-cut Thai guy from her Line profile. I hoped she was. Not because I was some kind of saint, but because her happiness didn't depend on my misery anymore. We were separate people living separate lives, and what happened to her had nothing to do with me. "I'm thinking about going back," Gary said, staring out at the skyline. "To Australia. My ex-wife's been sending emails, says she misses me." "That's good," I said, though we both knew he wouldn't go. Gary had been talking about going back for 3 years, according to the other expats at the pub. He was addicted to the possibility of leaving more than he actually wanted to leave. "What about you? Ever think about going home?" Home. That was a complicated word now. Where was home for someone like me? The apartment in Newark that I'd sold to fund my Thai adventure? My son's house in Philadelphia, where I'd be a burden and a reminder of how badly things could go wrong? The bar stool at Murphy's Tavern, where I used to drink alone on Friday nights? "This is home now," I said, and surprised myself by meaning it. "Bullshit. This isn't home. This is where we ended up." Maybe that was the same thing. Maybe home wasn't about geography or family or the place you were born. Maybe home was just wherever you stopped running from yourself. I'd stopped running. Not because I'd found peace or wisdom or any of that self-help bullshit, but because I was too tired to keep going. And in that exhaustion, I discovered something unexpected. The world didn't end when you admitted you were broken. The sun still came up. The city still hummed with life. People still needed their dishes washed, and their drinks poured, and their stories listened to by bartenders who'd heard it all before. "I used to think I was special," I said, not sure why I was telling Gary this. Not better than other people, just different somehow. Like the rules that applied to everyone else didn't apply to me. What rules? All of them. The rule that says if something seems too good to be true, it probably is. The rule that says people don't fall in love with you just because you're a nice guy with a pension. The rule that says when someone half your age says they love you, you should probably ask yourself why. Gary laughed, but it wasn't mean. "Yeah, well, we all think we're special until we find out we're not. The thing is, I'm not even angry about it anymore. About what she did. I understand it now." "Understand what?" "Why she did it. Why she had to do it." I took a sip of my terrible coffee and watched a construction crew start work on a building across the alley. She was 28 years old and working in a bar, pouring drinks for foreign men who thought they could buy her with their leftover money from home. She probably sent half her salary to her family in Eisen. Probably had debts and obligations and pressure I can't even imagine. So that makes it okay? It doesn't make it okay. It just makes it understandable. She saw an opportunity to improve her life, and she took it. I would have done the same thing in her position. You wouldn't have lied to someone who loved you. Wouldn't I? I thought about all the lies I'd told myself during our relationship, all the red flags I'd ignored, all the questions I'd refused to ask because I was afraid of the answers. I lied to myself every day for a year, about what we had, about what she felt for me, about what kind of future we could have together. If I could lie to myself that easily, why couldn't she lie to me? Gary was quiet for a while, and I could tell he was thinking about his own lies, his own ex-wife, his own version of the same story. So what now? He asked finally. Now I live, I said. I get up every morning and I wash dishes and I come home to this room and I watch the sunset from this balcony. And maybe that's enough. That's it? That's your big plan for the rest of your life? You got a better one? He didn't answer, which was answer enough. The truth was, I didn't have a plan anymore. For the first time in my adult life, I wasn't planning for anything. Not retirement, not marriage, not the weekend, not even the next day. I was just existing in the moment, and the moment was sitting on a concrete balcony in Bangkok, drinking shitty coffee and watching the world wake up around me. My phone buzzed with a text from Danny. Hey Dad, haven't heard from you in a while. Everything okay? Call me when you get a chance. I stared at the message for a long time. I could call him. I could tell him the truth about what had happened to me, about where his inheritance had gone, about why his old man was washing dishes in a Bangkok kitchen instead of enjoying his golden years in Florida like a normal retiree. But I didn't want to be his burden. I didn't want to be anyone's burden ever again. I typed back, all good here, living the dream, will call soon. Another lie. But this one felt different. This one felt like protection rather than self-deception. I'm going to shower, Gary said, standing up and stretching. Want to grab breakfast after? Sure, I said, though I knew he'd change his mind by the time he got out of the shower. Gary was always making plans he didn't keep, appointments he didn't remember, promises he couldn't fulfill. It was part of his charm, in a way. After he went inside, I sat alone on the balcony and watched Bangkok come alive. Street vendors setting up their carts, office workers heading to the BTS, construction crews starting another day of building the future on top of the past. I thought about all the mornings I'd wasted in my old life, rushing to get ready for work or watching the clock until it was time to come home. All the sunrises I'd missed because I was too busy planning for a future that never came. This sunrise was different. This sunrise belonged to me, not because I'd earned it or deserved it, but because I was here to see it. Because I'd survived long enough to sit on this balcony in my underwear and drink bad coffee and not apologize to anyone for the choices that had brought me to this moment. Maybe this was what peace looked like. Not happiness or contentment or any of the things I'd been chasing my whole life, but just the simple acceptance of what was. The understanding that this moment, right now, was all I really had. And maybe it was enough. Maybe I was enough, even broken and broke and far from home. Maybe I'd always been enough, and it had just taken losing everything to figure that out. The sun climbed higher, and the heat started building for another scorching Bangkok day. Soon I'd have to get dressed and walk to the pub and spend 10 hours washing other people's dishes. But not yet. For now, I could just sit here and watch the world wake up and be grateful for the simple fact that I was still alive to see it. If anyone's listening out there, I thought, looking out over the city that had taken everything from me and somehow given me myself back in return, don't mistake silence for peace. I learned that too late. But maybe it's not too late for you. The coffee was getting cold in my hands, but I didn't care. The sun was warm on my face, and that was enough. For now, that was everything. I'm still here. 3 years later. Still in Bangkok. Still washing dishes. Still sharing that room with Gary when he's not disappeared for weeks at a time, chasing whatever new scheme he's convinced will change his life. My son thinks I'm on an extended vacation. My ex-wife thinks I'm having a midlife crisis. They're both wrong, but they're both right too. The truth is simpler and more complicated than either of them could understand. I came to Thailand looking for love and found myself instead. Lost everything I thought mattered and discovered what actually did. Learned the difference between being alone and being lonely, between silence and peace, between surviving and living. I see men like I used to be every day. They come into the pub with their Thai girlfriends and their big plans and their certainty that they've figured out something the rest of us missed. I want to warn them sometimes, but I don't. We all have to learn our own lessons, make our own mistakes, find our own way to the bottom before we can figure out how to climb back up. Some nights, when I can't sleep, I still think about Palin. I wonder if she ever thinks about me, if she remembers anything good from our time together, if she's happy with the life she built from the pieces of mine. I hope she is. I really do. Because happiness isn't a zero-sum game. Her joy doesn't require my misery, just like my peace doesn't depend on her regret. We were two people who needed different things from each other, and when those needs stopped aligning, we went our separate ways. That's not betrayal. That's just life. The saddest part isn't that she never loved me. The saddest part is that I never really loved myself enough to see the difference between being wanted and being needed, between being chosen and being used. But I see it now, and maybe that's worth something. Maybe that's worth everything. The sun is setting over Bangkok as I write this, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink that would make you believe in magic if you didn't know better. Tomorrow, I'll wash more dishes, drink more bad coffee, and watch another sunrise from my tiny balcony. And maybe that's not the life I planned, but it's the life I've got. And maybe, for the first time in 68 years, that's enough. Maybe it's more than enough. Maybe it's exactly what I've been looking for all along.